Hi everybody, welcome back to the next in my series of updated for 2024 guides for the DayZ PC editor, which obviously can be used for console and PC custom objects and custom buildings and structures and all sorts of wonderful stuff. Now remember, in the description below this video you'll find a link to the playlist that has all of the videos that I've done kind of in some sort of logical order, so that you can also use the next and the previous links as well. But if you want to pick out the bits you want to work on, then you can look at those. Now in this video we're actually going to use the DayZ editor, and we're going to be looking at how to start it up, how to use it with different maps, where it stores the files. We're actually going to place a house and then we're going to export the files. I'm going to show you where to look for those files. Then I'm going to show you how to upload them to your server, including the file that will give you the loot in the building that we're going to place as well. So without further ado, let's jump on over to the DayZ launcher. So as you can see, I've loaded up DayZ Editor. It loads up builder items, dabs framework and CF. They're the needed other mods, otherwise it won't work. You can launch it without builder items, and for console that's often a good idea because we can't use builder items on console, but sometimes it does crash, and DayZ Editor is a bit buggy at the moment anyway, so I would load it up with those. Now if at this point you wanted to edit a modded map, so we're talking Namalsk or Anstara or any of the modded maps, then this is where you would also load that mod in as well. So we would type Namalsk, for example, Namalsk, and then if I could spell it right, there we go, and then we would load up Namalsk Island, and that would then give us the option to edit that when we get to the screen on the in the editor page that way. But as it's not, we're just going to go with those. Now to launch it, all we need to do now is click play. Remember, the DayZ Editor mod is a mod that runs on your computer. It doesn't run on a server or anything like that. It's almost like a single player version of DayZ without anything happening. It's just the map and you and the stuff that you want to do. As I say, DayZ Editor is a little bit buggy at the moment, so do expect crashes and all that sort of stuff. Just make sure you save your progress regularly and don't make things too complicated to start off with. So here we go. So now we can launch it. So now we click Open Editor. So as you can see, we have access straight away from Chernarus Plus or Enoch, which is Livonia. If we'd loaded up Namalsk would be here, and that would be how we would then jump into that map. But we're going to jump into Chernarus, so we're just going to say select there. Here we go. So now it's going to load up the map. There we go. Right, so what we can do now is with the space bar you can move between your mouse controlling where you are looking. If you press the space bar, that then brings up your mouse so that you can click on the various different options. So space bar, I'm looking around, space bar, I'm using the mouse. When we're looking around, we can then use WASD to move around, and then we can use Q to go up and Z to go down. Sort of pretty common first person shooter stuff. If we press shift while we're moving anywhere, we'll go faster, and if we press alt, in fact let's go down so we can actually see stuff. I think it's alt anyway. If we press alt we'll go slower, so that's how we can sort of go around. And I think, yeah, so they're the basic moving around stuff. Now if we really want to jump around the map, if we press M we can bring up the map, and then we can scroll in and out with our mouse wheel, sorry, and then we can move around by pressing and holding left mouse button. Let's go to my favourite place. I love going up here. And then we can scroll in with our mouse button, and then what we do is we click in the mouse button. You see, now we've got that, so we just click it in the mouse button, then we press M, and now we are up at the northeast airfield, so we can now move around. But it looks like I thought we crashed then for a second. So we can move around and do that sort of stuff. Now if you want to change the speed at which everything moves around, you can go into, where are we, preferences, and then we have camera, so we can change the speed that things happen. And then we have things like, here we go, let's see the stuff that'd be interesting. Camera speed, markers, the intro about that, brushes, themes, advanced. Okay, you don't need to worry about anything like that. The main one is the camera, just slowing down and speeding up the camera. Allow below ground can help if you're doing some things with some bunkers and stuff like that. So that's basically how we're going to move around. Now, what we have on the right, this is the things we've placed in our current build, and what we have on the left is the things that we can find. Now remember, if we're on console, we're avoiding anything that says builder, and we're just going to search for, say, let's search for house. Let's just see all the houses. So as you can see, there's lots of different houses here that we can search through, that we can use. And you can play around with these, and you'll find all sorts of wonderful things that you can use. Just avoid builder stuff. Just use like static and land, and you'll find most of the things that you can place. So what we'll do, let's place a house right here. Okay, so let's get into a position. You can still use WASD when you're using your mouse like that. So let's have a look. Land mill guardhouse 1. No, land house. Let's find one of these houses. Okay, so there's the house, and so I've just clicked on house on the left, and now I can just go around with my mouse and I can move it around, and I could just plonk it down like that, and then we can use our camera just to move around. If we want to move it again, just left click on the object and move it around. Now if we want to rotate it, what we do is we press and hold left click and press and hold the shift button, left shift as well, and we can rotate it around like however we want it to be. Say we wanted it there, and then we can let go. And then if we wanted to move it up and down, press Alt, then left click on the blue button, and then move it up and down like so, and you can get it into position. When you're in this mode where your mouse is free for you to move it around, and you're using WSD to kind of move around, if you want to move your viewpoint, you press the right mouse button and then drag, and that will move you around that way. When you're just learning and you're playing around with things, one of the things you might want to play around with is magnet mode and ground mode, and this affects how the structure kind of interacts with the environment around it. So does it say straight? Does it wobble around? Does it stick to things? All this sort of stuff. What you'll probably find though is, let me turn that off now, you're going to use a lot of controlling where you place objects with very, very fine adjustments. So if we come down, let's get close. So if we left click and hold that and press Alt and then bring it down, what you might find is you want to move things very, very finely. And what you can do is if you come off your mouse and just go to the arrow keys on your computer and press Alt at the same time, you can move things incredibly slowly like this. So we can do very, very, very fine adjustments just for lining things up. Like so. And the other thing you do is if you double click on the blue, you get the properties of the item. So what we can do here, we have X, Y and Z. X and Z are kind of east, west, north, south, so kind of on the flat plane, and Y is the altitude. So what we can do is we can actually come in here and we can change just these values like this. Also what you could do is this in under orientation, X is the angle, so we could change the angle, so we could change, say, 90 degrees like that, 0.46, and we can also change the tilt and the yaw, so you can do things like this if you're trying to really get something very, very fine. Most common way I do it though is I just left click on the blue, press shift, slowly move my mouse from left to right. Where's the, say we want it like that, and then I'll left click and then press Alt and I just slowly move my mouse like this. So we've kind of got the house where we wanted, then just click somewhere else. Now when you're happy where you've got something, double click on the blue and click on lock there and say OK. So that's now locked now. That's really important when especially when you're doing bigger builds, because it means you can't accidentally drag what you've already placed and then move it. And trust me, that is a very, very easy thing to do. So there we go. So there's our house. It's looking very nice where it is, isn't it? So what we're going to do now is we're just going to go File, and we're going to Save As, and we're going to call this. And then we've got to kind of scroll down here. You've got to grab this bar so you can see this. Depending on your size of your monitor, you'll see different. So we're going to call this NEAF Lonely. So another thing that can happen is when you're pressing keys that are bound to different commands within the editor, sometimes they will activate when they shouldn't do. So for example, when I'm typing here, it shouldn't activate to get rid of the UI with the Y button, but it does. So let's call it NEF house, and we're going to save that. So that will have saved that as a .dze file. So this is the DayZ Editor. Excuse me while I have a quick drink of my coffee. This is the DayZ Editor project file. So what we're going to do now is we're just going to jump out of Editor, and we're going to go into File Explorer just so I can show you where this stuff is. So if you go onto your PC and you go into your main drive and you go into your users, and then you go into you, so for scale for example for me, and then you go into your documents, this is where your computer stores information about lots of different programs and specifically games as well. So it's got information that these games want to store. It stores them here, which is roughly C drive, users, your name, under documents. Sometimes it will be here on the right hand side. So then if we go into DayZ here, there we see we've got editor, and here we have all of the different files. So if I do sort by date, we should find my one is at the top there, northeastairfield.dze. So what I would suggest you do, if you right click that and pin that to quick access, it will mean that you can quickly get back to this folder, because it's not the easiest thing to do. So let's go into there. So there's northeastairfieldhouse.dze. Now remember, a .dze file isn't usable by any other programs. This is just the file that we're going to use as a project file. So if you want to import projects into Editor, often they will come as a .dze file, but we do have the ability to import things like and open things like .jsons as well. So let's go back to the editor, make sure it doesn't crash. So spacebar. So if we wanted to load that file, we could say new open, and we could do that, or we could do import. So import from DayZ Editor, import from all that sort of stuff. Okay, so there's our house. So we really like this house, and we want to put this on our server. One thing I would say as well is it's much better to have lots of separate files that you upload to your server with different builds on than having one absolutely massive file that you want to upload, because that way if there's errors you'll find them a lot easier in smaller files than you would on bigger ones. So what we need to do now is we now need to export a file in a format that our server will understand. So we go File, Export, Export to Object Spawner.json. You remember this from some of the earlier videos. So we export to that, and then we scroll down. We've got to give it a name. So let's give it a name, NEAF house, and we're just going to call it JS, so it's a JSON. So we're going to export that. So that will have now exported the house. So if we jump back into here, we can see there's our Northeast Airfield house .json. Now let's open this up in Notepad, and that's basically an object spawner JSON with one item in it. Very, very simple. It just tells the server, I want you to spawn in a land house underscore 1W06 at this position. Now what we're going to do now is we're just going to jump over onto our server. So I'm using Nitrado servers as an example, and we're just going to download a file. We're going to download where are we? Let's go into our MP missions, and we're going to go into Chernarus, and we're going to download mapgrouppos. Let's just download that. Let's just open that. Now, mapgrouppos includes all of the things that will be on our map, and it tells the server not where to spawn these structures, but it just tells them where they are. Okay, so it's a really important file. We've talked about this in a previous video, and we're also going to look at mapgrouppos. So let's download this one. And mapgrouppos tells your server for a particular type of name of building or structure what loot should spawn in there. So what we're going to do before we go any further, we're just going to make sure that our server, which is a Chernarus server, knows what a landhouse 1W06 is. Now, if it doesn't, we can still spawn the house there, no problem, but we won't be able to spawn any loot. So we're going to go to mapgrouppos, and just to do in Notepad, just do Control F, and we're just going to paste that and find the next one. There we go. So within mapgrouppos, there is a reference for landhouse 1W06, which means that if we export the correct mapgrouppos snippet to tell the server that there is one of these houses at its location, mapgrouppos will then spawn in the correct loot for it. Now, this isn't something that is a problem very often, but there are certain structures that are on Livonia that aren't on Chernarus, and are on Chernarus that aren't in Livonia, and they aren't referred to in each other's files, but the game does know about them. So if there's a for example a structure that's specific to Livonia, you will be able to spawn it on Chernarus, but a Chernarus server won't have in its mapgrouppos file the reference to what sort of loot should spawn in there. So when you spawn it in, even if you put an entry into your mapgrouppos, the server will go, well, I don't know what loot's meant to spawn in there, and won't spawn in any loot at all. So that's quite important to know. Okay, so we've ascertained the fact that there is one. So what we're going to do now is let's go back to DayZ Editor, and now what we're going to do is go File, and we're going to export to mapgrouppos. So we click on that, and we're going to scroll down, and we're going to call this NEAF MGP mapgrouppos, and we're going to export that. Okay, so at this point we've really done everything that we need in order to make this appear on our server once we've uploaded the relevant things. So we're just going to jump out of here now. We're going to go back to the editor, and so here we have. So as you can see, we've got our northeast airfield house JSON. So that's going to spawn in the building, and then let's have a look at this little snippet. The Edit with Notepad++. So this is the mapgrouppos snippet. Now, a mistake that often people make is when they export to mapgrouppos, they think it will be the whole file, but it's not. It's only the little bit that we need to insert into our server's mapgrouppos to tell our server, look, we're adding a new house here. Please spawn in the correct loot. So there we go. So now what we can do, let's go back to our servers now. So let's take this one and let's go back to here. Okay, so these are all my Nitrado servers. And so the first thing you want to make sure is that if you're on a console server, make sure in the settings you've enabled CFG gameplay.json. That's super important. Now on a PC server, it's actually in the server DZ.config. On Nitrado, you would go to expert settings and you would add a line in that says enable CFG gameplay =1 semicolon. And that means that your server will then look at the CFG gameplay. Then what we need to do is we need to upload our files and our code snippet to the correct place. So this is a PC server, but it's the same idea as a console server. So you go into your missions folder. So MP missions, I think it's PS missions on PlayStation, XP missions on Xbox, and Chernarus Plus is the folder we want to do, Enoch if it's Livonia, or be some other map if you're on PC. So here we are. Now, in previous videos, I said what you should always do, I think anyway, is create if you're on PC, create a custom folder within your missions folder, and this is where you're going to store all your map files. The reason for this is that on console we have to do this. In fact, it's already done for us on console, and if we don't put our files into the custom folder, the game will just ignore them anyway. It ignores anything out of there. So if we go into custom like this, and then I go upload file. Now remember how we created a quick link to editor, so I can click on that, and what we want to upload is the NEAF house.json. I could have probably chosen a better name. So let's open that up. There we go. So that has now added that there. Now I'm just going to copy that name there, and then what we're going to do, we're just going to go back to the missions root directory. We're going to go into cfg gameplay.json. I don't always recommend editing files using the browser, but it's not too difficult, this one, so we're going to do that. So we're going to scroll down, and we're going to go to the object spawner array. Now your object spawner array will probably look something like that. It won't have anything in, so we need to put our entry in. So we're going to do quotation marks custom, because that's where it is, / and then I'm just going to control V, I'm going to paste that NEAF house.js.json, and I'm going to put, and that is that. Now if there was and then we need to put the quotation marks there. Now if there was another something else that I was going to put there as well, I would put another comma in, then I would put the extra stuff. Similarly, if there was already a structure there, I would put a comma before the custom. So we would do that, and then we would save that like that. Okay, so that's now saved. Now what would happen now is, if we restarted our server up at the northeast airfield, that house would be there, but inside it there wouldn't be any loot at all, so that wouldn't be particularly good. So what we now need to do is we now need to add that little snippet, snippet we got here, the NEAF MGP snippet, into the correct file. So let's just have a look. Right, so now what we're going to do, let's just find our map group pos file. So if we go back to the home of our mission, and then we go to mapgrouppos. Now, what's interesting? Yeah, this is interesting. So as you can see, we can't edit this on the server. It's not letting us. This happens sometimes. It just doesn't let us do it. We might, if we stop the server, it might let us do it. Actually, let's just see if that works. So that's just going to stop the server. If it doesn't, the way that we would do it is we would download it, and then we would edit it locally on Notepad++, and then we would upload it. So that's going to stop that. Let's see if we can edit it. Yeah. Okay, so we're going to assume it doesn't. So we would click on download, just like I did, and you would open it up locally. And then all we do is at the top, we just make a space, or make a couple of spaces. We go to our little snippet we've got here, and all we need is, we just need that line there. We don't need the rest of it, we just need that line there. So we would copy that, and we would just put it into there. Let's just tab that over, and we can just see at the beginning and at the end everything's fine, and we could save that. And let's go back to our server and just see. Right, so the server stopped. Let's just refresh, see if it lets us edit it now. So it doesn't. It says something about you can't do it. So what we would now do is we would now upload that. Let me just show you before we get started actually. Let's go over to the XML file validator. And what we'll do, let's just choose the file, and let's go to downloads and mapgrouppos. Let's open that, and let's just validate that to make sure it was okay. No errors were found, so that's brilliant. So now we can go back here, and we can just double check it's the right one. Mapgrouppos1, so upload file, mapgrouppos1, open that. So that's now going to upload it to the file. And if we go down here, we'll see it. And as we can see, it's the wrong name. So we're going to rename this one here, if it lets us. Will it let us? Mapgrouppos old. That way we've got a backup. And that means we can now rename this one. we can just get rid of keep the dot mapgrouppos.xml. Scroll down. So mapgrouppos is there. We've got mapgrouppos old just in case there was a mistake, and then we would simply start our server or restart our server, and then what you would find is, if you went up to the northeast airfield, you would find this little house, and you would find it would have loot spawning inside. So that's pretty cool, isn't it, if you ask me? Absolutely fantastic. So that's how easy it is to get started with the DayZ Editor, to put something down. Let's unlock that. Now, remember, at this point, if we were to edit this now and move the house somewhere else and then export a fresh object spawner.json, we would have to export a fresh mapgrouppos or mapgroup entry as well. I keep getting that name wrong, don't I? Let's make sure I'm telling you the right one. It's mapgrouppos. I guess it's mapgroup position, isn't it? We'd have to export a different one of those. Otherwise, what would happen is the loot would spawn. Say we move the house over to here, the loot would keep spawning in the air over there. So just bear that in mind when you are moving things around. Go back and you're going to have to change your mapgrouppos snippets as well. So there we are. That, my friends, is how you place a structure, and that's how you get loot to spawn in it using the DayZ Editor mod. Okay, so that's enough for me for this one. Remember, in the description below this video, you'll find a link to the next video and the previous one. And if you find the video useful, hit help. And if you want to see more, hit like. And if you want to see more of the same, press subscribe. Thank you very much, and I'll see you again soon.